Hello. Some of you will remember that last week I actually tried reading a newspaper out on the blog, and the crackling of the newspaper was really quite intrusive. And I might say that this was after I'd spent hours, literally hours, audio editing it, so all the worst of the peaks were flattened down, but still they were much too loud. And that was the Telegraph, which is a broadsheet, so there was a large amount of paper that crackled. So I decided to try this. Well, a very obliging friend who makes videos as well, he lent me this, which is one of those clip-on things, and all the kit that went with it. It's a marvellous thing. Sennheiser, really nice, but of course he's not giving that to me, and we thought we'd just try it. But I need a memory card for it, and I haven't got round to going out to getting one. So in the meantime, I'm trying this. I put the microphone on a plant stand. An old plant, it's just a good thing. It's been in the garage for years, and now it's coming in handy, because I don't have a boom stand or anything like that. And I thought I'd just try it out. So it's there, it's slightly behind me, and the newspaper, which in this case is not a broadsheet, is ahead of me. So with any luck, you will hear some crackling, but not enough to drown me out. All right, this is really a test. If it doesn't work, I simply won't put it up on the internet. And if it does work, well, you're going to get a bonus episode this week. Now, it's the Times from Wednesday, which is today. Oh no, it's Thursday. Oh dear, it's Thursday. Sign of interest. I'm getting old, you know. It's Thursday, and I'm looking at the Times. And then I'll read these, and then I'll have to scan the bits that I'm talking about, and put them up now. Where will I put them up? Well, probably there. Okay, one of the first things that you may have noticed, I've got a bit of a down on the BBC. You know, the funny thing was, even when they were abusing me, when I was working for them, I still believed in the BBC as a principle, as a publicly funded broadcaster. I still believed it was a good thing. And in principle, I still believe that. The only problem is it's being kidnapped. And so I found this in the Times. Well, there we are. BBC. I feel like I'm taking mug shots here. BBC, here we are, may have to compete with rivals for programme budgets. You know, the Johnson government is, the Conservatives under the Johnson government are going to restrict, pull in the reins a bit on the BBC. And this is also good, even if it remains publicly funded. The problem with the BBC is, as often happens with large organisations, it just started to overexpand, and it started to get filled with people with too much of a sense of their own importance. So I don't know whether they're going to. I saw another headline in which it said in 7 years' time they're going to be licence free. I don't know about that, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Now, up to now, I think that governments have not. They've seen there's a problem, but they've not dared to do anything about it because they're worried, literally, about getting bad press. However, Johnson now has had such a bad press from the BBC. He knows it can't get any worse, or, you know, if it does get worse, nobody's going to take much notice of them now. They have overstepped the mark. So he can do what he wants. Right. Let's see what we've got here. Ah, yes. race to bring it in, emergency law, before more terrorists are freed. You see, there was, I'll read this to you. Ministers are racing, getting laws through takes time usually. They have to go through a white paper stage, which is just a suggestion, that's debated, and then it may go to committee. And the idea is all these stages. Let's see, I think it goes like this. It's a white paper, that's debated in the House, then it goes to committee because various things may need tweaking, then it comes back as something called a green paper, which is again debated, and then maybe that's another committee job, and then it comes back, and then it goes to the House of Lords, who will also debate it, and they may actually throw it back to the House of Commons to say it's not right, you've got to do some more work on it. And the whole idea of that is that bad laws don't get pushed through. What happens is you get people like, say, Tony Blair, abusing the system, and they want to get something through. They push it through, they have a large majority, so they can get it through with no debate, and then they put it to the House of Lords, and then they tell the Lords, you get this through, or they blackmail them in some way, and that's how Blair got the Foxhunting bill pushed through, by the way. This is all intended to handicap our lawmakers, because they should be handicapped. Unfortunately, you get people who won't play the system the way it's supposed to be played, like Blair, and you get abuses. Because the Foxhunting bill was an abuse. I'm talking about when you do things wrong, it may be for a cause which may or may not be just, but it creates a precedent that allows other bad laws to come through. So I'm not arguing for or against fox hunting. I'm staying neutral for the purposes of this video. What I am saying is that the fox hunting bill was pushed through almost as bad as the EU bill not too long ago, the Brexit thing. But now, because of the dangers, the dangers of terrorism being put back on our streets, because a law had been passed earlier that when somebody goes into prison for terrorist-related offences, the sentence only runs to about half, and then the detainee gets out. And now they want to change that because the attempted stabbing in Streatham was from one such person. And this is a CCTV video, a shot of it, showing Sudesh Aman just before he began his attack in Streatham. He stabbed two bystanders before he was shot dead by the police. Now, what really interested me was that the police were there within seconds, and they were dressed in mufti. They were following him, and they had a team following him. It looked like there were 3 or 4 of them, and they were all following this man. They knew he was dangerous, and they thought he was likely to attack somebody, and yet they couldn't just arrest him. I think possibly stop and search may have been the stop and search rule, which we used to have, may have done some good there. There's a problem of how far you go to protect people, because sometimes you can protect them to the extent that they can't really live anymore. I mean, China has very solid protections on its citizenry now, and just look what sort of society they have. So there's a problem, but stop and search was being, according to various social agitators, stop and search was being used by the police to bully black youths, young men, teenagers and early 20s. And so they said this can't be allowed anymore because it's a racist rule. And in fact, I think it was the guy who does We Have a Problem. Anyway, one of those videos, he said he's a white man. When he was a kid, he was stopped and searched by the police regularly, and it wasn't specifically aimed at young black men. It was aimed mostly at young men, though, for sure. Okay, ministers are racing to push through an emergency law to stop the early release of convicted terrorists by the end of the month before the next one is freed. Look, when you're writing stuff like this, the biggest sin you can commit is to make your reader read whatever you have tried to convey twice or three times to get the idea of what you're saying. Now, what this sentence has said, ministers are racing to push through an emergency law to stop the early release of convicted terrorists by the end of the month before the next one is freed. Do they mean the emergency law by the end of the month, or the convicted terrorists coming out by the end of the month? Do you see what I mean? Just think about what you're saying. Now, I understand when a journalist is writing copy, there's a deadline. But yeah, who wrote this? Ian Aitchison. No, not Ian Aitchison. Oh yes, Stephen Swinford, Deputy Political Editor, Fariha Karim. It looks from the way it's been written here that Stephen Swinford is the editor and Fariha Karim was the more junior journalist who wrote this article. Ms. Karim, think a bit more. All right, Mohammed Zahir Khan, who called for Shia Muslims to be burnt alive and expressed support for Islamic State online, is due to be automatically released on February the 28th after serving half of his 4.5-year sentence. Now, he's coming out on the 28th, and I believe it's a leap year this year, isn't it? Which means on the 29th I could propose marriage to a man of my choice, and if they don't let him out, I won't get that chance. Shucks. Okay, in an attempt to stop the early release of Khan and other convicted terrorists, the government will attempt to gain royal assent for emergency legislation a day before he's due to leave jail. This is a cliffhanger. This would also mean that 5 more convicted terrorists due to be released next month remained in prison. Will remain in prison. Oh, for goodness sake. I'm not the copy editor of this newspaper. This is the Times. A Whitehall official said, if the legislation is passed by February the 27th, we can prevent the automatic release of any further terrorist suspects who might pose a threat to the public. This is emergency legislation which we believe is vital for protecting the public. We're sure the Lords will wish to carry out this scrutiny quickly, allowing royal assent by February the 27th. I can imagine all these civil servants rushing backwards and forwards up and down the corridors of power, delivering the papers to the various branches of the legislature to have it sent through, and then the Queen being woken up in the middle of the night with the curlers in her hair and half asleep to sign the document. Yeah, and they were just saying, you know, this guy Sudesh Aman, who was 20 and a convicted terrorist, was shot dead by police on Streatham High Road. Now, Boris Johnson was making a speech and a newspaper reporter off screen at this conference or whatever said, what are you going to do about these? He approached the subject realistically in a way I haven't heard done before. To my recollection, he said, first of all, how do we stop them infecting each other with this Islamist, well, I don't know if he used the word virus, but, you know, with Islamism. And I thought, I've never heard that before to start with. And yes, it is like an infection, so he's right. And what got me was there wasn't an outraged yelp from all the newspapers that he was using terms like infection. It means the mood in this country is changing towards that sort of things, and as long as it doesn't go too far, that's all to the good. He said, we've got a choice here. We can disperse them through various prisons, at which point there's a danger that they will infect other prisoners, or we can group them all together in special units or prisons and increase the chances of them reinfecting each other. And he's right, it is a problem. And it's a problem of what to do with these people. Because, as has been pointed out, when somebody has a religious belief, they are not amenable to reason anymore. And I'm not talking about specifically Islam. All those guys on the left who have this religious belief in socialism, they can see socialism isn't working, they can see Venezuela, they can look at the statistics for what happened in China during the Great Leap Forward and all that sort of thing, and they can see that. And yet they can still say, well, it's not really socialism, and we could do it better. So when people are under this sort of a compulsion, you do have a problem, and we have to think of ways of dealing with this, different ways. The present prison system is not up to the job. It wasn't meant for these sort of people. Yeah, that's about it for that. All right, what a gorgeous picture. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, check it out. This Harlequin dress by Irving Penn is one of 50 rare images taken between the 1920s and the 1960s that feature in Breaking Away, Modernism in Photography Since World War I at the Richard Nagy, I think that's pronounced Nye, but I don't know, Gallery in London. Just look at that picture. Isn't that elegant? Isn't that beautiful? And I'm showing you this because that's real elegance. We've forgotten about real elegance nowadays. We have, it's all, padded out bottoms and the Kardashian look. Look, the Kardashians are earning a fine living off their look, but it's not elegant, is it? All right, let's see what else we've got here. I might cut this while I look through the pages. Okay, so we have a nod to our cousins across the pond. That's a nice cartoon, isn't it? Tune in for the Bloomberg and Bernie show. And this one was written by Gerard Baker. The descent of American politics into some kind of experiment in live action, post-modern and anarchistic art. Yeah, that tearing up of the speech was a bit like performance art, wasn't it? There's a van parking outside. I wonder if that's a parcel for me. If it is, I'll have to go and pick it up. Anarchistic art accelerated on all fronts this week. On Monday, the long-awaited, highly competitive race for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination began like a sprinter shot in the foot by the starting pistol. I like Gerard Baker, that's good. The Iowa caucuses, the traditional opening to the primary contest, ended in farce when a combination of human organisational and technological failure meant that the results could not be reliably tallied and reported, almost 48 hours after eager Iowans had huddled into schools and libraries to deliver their choice for the party's nominee. We still didn't have the full results. It's Thursday. I don't think we have the full results today either. On Tuesday, President Trump delivered a State of the Union address that was part Oprah-style reality TV show and part political pantomime, opening with the president declining to shake the hand of Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic Speaker of the House of Representatives, and concluding with her theatrically tearing up her copy of the president's remarks. On Wednesday, the Dada-esque exhibition moved to the Senate for the denouement of the president's impeachment trial. And I saw a picture of Rashida Tlaib heading, not a picture, a video, and she was grinning all over her face, and she had a smile. Oh, just a minute, that reminds me, how doth the busy crocodile? Oh, doorbell, just a minute. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, it was my new riding hat. Okay, now, where was I? Looking at, oh yes, I was talking about Rashida Tlaib's grin. I was reminded of a poem, and it was either in Alice in Wonderland or Alice Through the Looking Glass, and I don't remember who says it, but it goes something like, how doth the busy crocodile improve each shining hour? No, that was the original poem. How doth the busy bee improve each shine? How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail and splash the waters of the Nile on every shining scale? And then how cheerfully he appears to grin. That's wrong, that doesn't scale. How cheerfully he seems to grin. How cheerfully he seems to grin. How well he spreads his claws and welcomes little fishies in with gently smiling jaws. I'm sure that's more or less right. Anyway, I love Lewis Carroll's poems. They're generally satires on the sort of improving stuff that was fed to Victorian children, and he got that spot on. Anyway, I was reminded of that crocodile poem when I saw Rashida Tlaib smile, and she was jolly. Oh, we're going to impeach President Trump. How could anybody vote Democrat after that? Impeachment is a serious constitutional move which has the capability of destroying a government which is balanced in a very fragile way. And impeachment is like hitting something that's balanced on a very narrow ledge. You don't do it with joy. If you have that amount of joy about something like that, then there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your understanding of constitutional democracy. And this is student stuff. This is what students do when the student union is having a barney about something. And that's not nice either, but you can understand that. But this is a Congress woman. She has responsibility for people's lives. And her responsibility should extend to defending constitutional democracy. And when it is necessary to make an attack on the constitutionally elected head of that democracy, this is a serious matter. It's not like I mean, it's along the same lines as her walking along and saying, oh, we're going to bury Granny now. She died yesterday, so we're digging her in this afternoon. That's, it's as serious as that. And you don't laugh about this job that you've got to do, whether it's burying Granny or burying the Constitution. All right, now I want to see how that came out. And if it came out all right, I'll put it up. No, every time. I forget this every time. Look, like, make sure your subscription is all right and the bell is up to date, and share. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.